Good morning, everyone. This is Stanford, your host for this particular interview. We have the pleasure of speaking to or interviewing Mr. Songezo Mhambi. He is a partner of 28 East, or a client of 28 East, a recent one. He is using services of 28 East, which are quite unique to South Africa. It's not just the coverage map. He may be able to inform you or tell you a little bit more about Find My Coverage product. I would love him to introduce himself before we start off with more formal questions. Over to you.
Thank you, Stanford, and good morning to all the guests. My name is Songezo Mhambi. I founded a small ISP called Mdantsane that's based in a township called Mdantsane, just outside of East London in the Eastern Cape. With the business started in 2019. I'm sure we'll go deeper into the juicy details as we go through the questions.
I'm sure we will. Question number one. You have started your business. You had an idea. You had initial inspiration behind your business. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, the year is 2016. Standing outside my grandmother's house, and in the townships we've got these lights. We use these lights to light up the township at night. We like to call them, we grew up calling them searchlights. It's a very tall steel structure with a round, these days LED, a couple of LEDs on the top. So because of the beam, I would look at the effect of the beam of the light, of these lights at night. And I wondered, what if we could put some sort of antennas of access points on top of these things and just beam the internet all over the entire township? So of course, as with all ideas, they never start out fully formed. So I started exploring, and then later when I realized, you start looking at the reality of the maintenance, how high it is, but the idea was there. But the idea would be parked for later. I would actually go back to corporate to take one last assignment with a local engineering firm. And when around 2019 April, then I took the decision and said, you know what, I'm going to go back. I'm going to put that idea into action. So little did I know how much of a headache it would be starting an ISP with nothing, with zero funds. so basically, there's actually a very funny picture of me, and I'm not sure where that picture is in the internet these days. Me climbing up behind the door, behind the house, putting up some very old ladder that my mother used to use when she's painting the house. And I'm climbing up on this ladder wearing a black vest and a straw hat, and I'm putting up this Ubiquiti AP, hoping that we're going to put this thing up there, and we're going to allow people to connect to it. And at the time, we didn't really have an idea of how we're going to control it. But we cut them fast forward a couple of months, thousands of YouTube videos later, thousands of studies later, thousands of arguments with service providers. We had this thing running then. And funny thing, it's actually connected to a SIM card that I had taken with Access Mobile. On contract. We used to top it up. I think we used to get 200 gig on this thing on a monthly basis, and then I would normally top it up for $200. And we actually linked some Ubiquiti controllers to this AP, and suddenly it started working. When something works for the first time, it's like, oh, okay, it's actually doing what we thought it would do. It's actually distributing these vouchers, not really distributing the vouchers. The vouchers were actually written on paper, on a scruffy diary that I still keep till this day as a memento, with missing pages that I used to tear into pieces and write down the vouchers like manually and start collecting 20 rands from people behind the house, neighbors around the neighborhood coming in to connect, and started putting up more Ubiquiti APs around the town. I think we had 8 at the time. It was not until 2020 that we took it official and started, I think we signed our first co-location agreement with the Telkom group in March 2020. We climbed onto one of their towers, and then we started getting seriously because we had decided that, you know what, we're going to take this a step further. We're going to start connecting households. We're going to start connecting schools. And that's how the ISP was born.
That is interesting. And I think you've touched on a couple of challenges that you had experienced there. My question to you regarding one of the challenges is, did you ever secure that light high site as a tower?
Yes, we did. We actually did. Till this day, that still remains our breakout point for the entire township.
Brilliant. Starting out, obviously there are risks, quite a number of risks, and navigation in navigating these uncertain times when you're establishing yourself. Were there any specific standout moments that you sort of really thought to yourself, oh no, what have I done?
How much time do you have?
Only half an hour.
It was an absolute nightmare. I won't lie to you. There was a time when, in the township, you've got informal settlements that begin to form around each neighborhood. And the moment we've got informal settlements, you're going to start having illegal electrical connections. And once you start having illegal electrical connections, then we have power breakdowns. Now, you can imagine having a power breakdown when you don't even have any backup whatsoever. We had these old UPSs that Mdantsane became my business partner later in the business, who joined the business later on. He used to bring these old UPSs that he used to collect in Joburg, would put them in a bakkie, and they had these batteries that would only last for about 30 minutes or 1 hour. If we're lucky with some, we will celebrate when we get a UPS that can actually last for about an hour and a half. This is a good one. So you can imagine, we don't have a cent to our name. Anything I had, any savings I had, it's already gone. So we, the electrical issue would happen at my place where the network is running from. And we're running this office just around the block, and there's power in the office. So between 11 p.m. and about 2 a.m. in the morning, I've got my alarm on. It goes off every 40 minutes. I sleep for 30 minutes, for 40 minutes, it goes off. I take the battery that I'm busy charging in my room, I put it on my shoulders, and I walk all the way down and go get the other big battery, put it on the other shoulder, come back, charge it up. So every 40 minutes, the alarm goes off. I have to wake up, go and charge the battery. So I will be doing this from like 10 p.m. until 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. in the morning. So I'm sleeping like 40 minutes in between. The reason why I'm doing this would become the very principle that our business is built on, the customer. Because I was so scared that a customer might wake up and realize that the network is down. So we wanted to ensure that the network remains up, because I was hopeful that one day this network will run on its own. I will no need to put these batteries on my shoulders every 40 minutes and run my alarm up every time there's an electrical issue in the township. So that was just one of the challenges. It's been one hell of a nightmare right from the beginning, until till this day. So that was just one of the highlights. There were so many challenges. We had to, before we went up and put up the high sites and started connecting customers directly, we were running these Wi-Fi vouchers. So you can imagine we're writing these things on a piece of paper. So at some point, we needed distribution, some sort of a distribution channel to make it easier for them to reach people, instead of them coming to knock at my door while I haven't slept in between 40 minutes charging batteries. So I still have to distribute vouchers and write them down for them. So we spoke to the spaza shops. The guys point blank refused it because they didn't know what it was. So eventually one agreed. So we had to go, we would print this bulk page and take it to the printers in town and get the guys to print this, and then we start cutting them with scissors and give them to the spaza shops. And then eventually they were able to do it in a more perforated manner that it gets hidden. And I think they would charge us R1 per voucher. And we'll start distributing them to the spaza shop. We leave them there, and then we come pick them up at month end. We have to calculate the money, how much money was sold, and you give the guy his cut. So it was a manual process like that. Unlike today, where everything is totally automated, we've mastered the art of doing it. So those were just some of the challenges. And of course, the challenge that every business faces, which is funds to keep that business running, especially doing something like this, as capital intensive as this one, with nothing in your pocket, but a dream, just knowing that, look, I'm going to get it to work. I'm going to get it to work. So it's a mountain of challenges, Stanford. I would have to write a book and then leave it there for everyone to read.
It would be a tremendously interesting book, and I'm sure you'd sell plenty of them. You grew up in the township that you have just described. You were part of that community. You have alluded to the fact that you made use of the spaza shops to get these vouchers distributed and what have you. But the local community, how were they involved in shaping your business in the early days, or even today?
Look, we went and we went and deployed internet infrastructure in a place where there was nothing at the time. No ISP would even look at us. No ISP thought Mdantsane was important. So you can imagine when you get to a co-location area and you're about to co-locate, the grass was this high. Everything is rusted through. There's no security. Doors are broken. You already know that by putting up this cabinet upside here, it's going to be stolen at some point. So we had to now, remember, you have to now start from scratch. You have to first convince backhaul providers that you need to bring me a service to this point. I need it. It took about a year for the first backhaul provider to actually understand what was happening, because they thought that, no, this is just a circuit belonging to any other client that we have in the area, like your ShopRite checkers and everything. And they could not get, who is this guy that keeps swearing at them at midnight about a circuit that is down? And I keep telling them, no, that is not just one circuit. There are hundreds of households dependent on that. There are clients riding on this thing. So it got to a point where now there's a 24-hour security guard at that exchange. The grass is always kept nice and green. They've actually even manned the exchange now, because it hasn't been manned since the 80s. They actually have technicians working there now from 8 to 5. The generator, they went and bought a brand new generator and installed a brand new big 350K plant, because they started seeing that, no, man, there is activity happening in the place now, and there's an ISP that's actually taking this place seriously. As for the community, man, it was actually quite amazing. There was this following that started building up behind us, because everyone had been sitting there, and all of a sudden you're being told, we're going to have internet in Mdantsane. And everyone said, who's going to bring it to us? Because no one has ever taken it seriously. I mean, you're talking about a 60,000 household township. So every work that I did, whenever we deployed a new tower, I will be taking pictures, I'll be taking videos. So they will be watching live on weekends as the work was continuing. So it became so exciting for everyone that, okay, when is it going live? When do we start buying? It got so exciting that to this day, the brand is so strong locally. It is so strong that it has actually withstood the most toughest competition that was brought to us in the past couple of years, and we're still here, and it's still growing strong, because the amount of loyalty that you got from the community, because they were there as it was built, and they bore witness to it. They watched it as it was being built, and they actually saw the challenges that, no, this thing is actually built from nowhere, because there is nothing. That co-location tower that we were on is the only tower where we are actually co-locating. We've got about 20 towers in the township, and all the other 20 towers were actually built by us. They were brought up by us, they were designed by us, and the most amazing thing about all of them is that they are totally off-grid. They're totally grid independent. So we decided that, look, we're gonna over-invest on the infrastructure, because we knew what was coming. We knew that load shedding was coming and it was going to intensify. We didn't know when, but we knew it would come. So today, if there's load shedding, we simply know there's load shedding. We're not worried because all the towers are running on solar. And another issue that we had identified with the bigger companies was vandalism and theft. So we made sure that each tower that we built is in someone's yard. There's an agreement with that person. They get something back, and they look after that tower. And we've been operating like that for years. So it became this community gathering thing where it's okay, do you need space for one of your towers? I'm available. Are you gonna give me free internet? You know, people would actually compete on Facebook. We'll take an aerial photo and say, okay, whoever lives in this area, we want to put a repeater in your area. So everyone would compete for the spot. No, put it in my house, because they knew that they're gonna get all these freebies. You're gonna get some free VoIP if you're running a business and some free internet. So it became very exciting. So it became a movement than a brand. Before it became a brand, it actually was a movement.
Goodness gracious, what an interesting story. And I suppose this leads beautifully onto my final question. And that really has to do with understanding your expansion. Okay, so you've taken the engagement way beyond a brand. So they actually, you rely on the movements of the community, if you wish. So is that your strategy to expand out your network? Do you want to expand out further?
We are expanding. We're actually busy now because Mdantsane is so big. It's about 38 to 40 square kilometer big. So it took us quite a long time to cover the entire township. So now we've got all this pressure that's coming from the surrounding townships and villages saying, no, what about us? So we've been now, for instance, that's when 28 East has come quite handy now, because it was a bit difficult for us to get the database, to collect the data, to see the people that are registering interest. Where are these people? When 28 East, the API that we did with them came on board, it became so seamless. Now we've got an interest register that's just building up on the background. So we are getting to see exactly what we thought was true, that no, and we've got so many people in such and such areas who are actually asking questions to a point that now is more accurate. We can actually see who those people are. So it's actually quite exciting. So we are preparing now to close off the entire metropolitan with our wireless infrastructure during this current year. And then after that, we'll start looking at the rest of the province.
Well, that's a fantastic good news story, I must say. And I hope everyone who are attending our conference are equally impressed with your story, because it's a fantastic story. So Songezo, just on closing, imagine that you're a mentor and you've got a young person coming up, aspiring to become an ISP in their own communities. What words of wisdom would you have for someone entering into the ISP market, if you wish?
I've become known for this verse. It's almost biblical. In all that you do, in everything that we do here, everyone who joins this company is taught the same thing. Get the customer to fall in love, and the profits will come. That's the most important thing. So we can build the infrastructure. It can be resilient. We can have all the fancy systems in the world. But if we can't get the customer to fall in love, if we can't reach the heart of the customer, it's pointless even being in business. So we need to be customer-centric. We need to put the customer first in every development that we're doing, in every R&D, every research we do. We put the customer first. If we're talking about the ease, look, if you're going to be running an ISP, there are three things I always say to everyone: that the network needs to be resilient. Your billing needs to be easy for the customer to pay you. And they need to know, most importantly, they need to know where to go, where to call, and when there's a problem. And it needs to be seamless. Because if you can't get those three things right, you haven't finished building that ISP.
And with those very wise words, from the bottom of our heart, we want to thank you very much for being a tremendously loyal customer. And we want to thank you very much for the opportunity, for hearing your story and your learning points and your wise words. So thank you very much.